Mrs. Pierson here. Welcome to math. I know it's going to feel unusual having your math lesson from home, but the benefits are that you can hit pause and then you can scroll back and listen to what I said and repeat it as much as you'd like. I know you can't ask questions, but you will be able to contact your teacher or me if you have questions at the end of the slide. We'll have plenty of practice, so let's give it a shot. Today's learning target is I can find the volume of a rectangular prism. Now I know we were working on this before we went off of school, but it's been a few weeks, so I wanted to review with you. Let's take a look at what volume would mean and rectangular prism would mean. Under our success criteria, we do have those as our vocabulary. So volume, remembering, is the amount of space inside of a 3D object. How much space you can fit inside of a shoebox, how much you can fit inside of a room. So remember, it's the inside of a 3D figure, and that's measured with cubic units, meaning we would use cubes to fill up whatever that object was. How many cubes does it take to fill it up? So that's what we're measuring when we're measuring volume. The only type of figure that you have to do for 5th grade is finding the volume of a rectangular prism. You can find the volume of other figures. There's formula for others, but you won't get to those formulas until higher level geometry. So for right now, we just have to worry about rectangular prism. Remember, that is a 3D shape that's made up of 6 faces that are all rectangles. Also keeping in mind that a square is a type of rectangle. So if one of those faces or 2 of those faces are squares, it still is a rectangular prism, which means a cube would also be categorized as a type of rectangular prism. 6 faces that are all squares, those are still rectangles. So we're finding the volume of a rectangular prism. A rectangular prism is called a 3D shape, 3-dimensional. The D stands for dimensions, so there's 3 dimensions. We have length, width, and height. Remembering height is always the vertical. So those are our 3 dimensions that we're looking at when we're looking at a rectangular prism. All right, the other skill that we need to be able to do today is I can multiply whole numbers. We have been doing that. We've mainly been multiplying 2 whole numbers. This time with 3 dimensions, we're going to be multiplying sometimes 3 whole numbers. Okay, so now that we've reviewed our success criteria, we're ready to get started with our actual steps or formulas. So again, I can find the volume of a rectangular prism. If we were in the classroom, I would have you repeat that. We do have 2 different types of formulas that you need to be aware of. The first formula is just multiplying length times width times the height. That would equal the volume. But sometimes the length and the height have been multiplied for you, and the information they may give you is that this is the area of the base times the height. So sometimes you'll have 3 numbers that you have to multiply, but sometimes you'll have 2 numbers because, again, the length and the width have been done for you, and they would call that the area of the base. So right now I'm going to ask you to hit pause, and in your notebook or on your piece of paper, I'm going to ask you to copy down these 2 formulas because these are the 2 formulas you need to be able to use in order to find volume. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, welcome back. So let's take a look at what these 2 different formulas would look like if we were solving for volume. So down here we have a rectangular prism. We can see the 3 dimensions are 6 by 2 by 3. We know 3 is the height because it's vertical. We know there's 3 dimensions that are being given here, so I'm going to use the first formula of length times width times height equaling volume. I can see my length is 6, my width is 2, and my height is 3. So I just multiply those 3 numbers. 6 times 2 is 12, 12 times 3 is 36. So my volume equals 36. The units that were given were inches, and I know my units when I'm solving for volume are cubic. So I would put a small 3 behind the inch. Always behind the inch, don't ever put it with a number. That would be incorrect. We want to show that the cube would be an inch size. So 36 cubic inches. This is a sample of using the first formula. Let's take a look at when the area of the base is given to us, when the length and the width have already been multiplied, because we will get that a little bit. So in this case, you can see there's not 2 dimensions shown here. It's just stating the area of the base is 8 square centimeters, because remember that's area, and our height is 10. Okay, so that means that 2 numbers were already multiplied. Now we know it's 8, so maybe it was an 8 by 1. Was it a 4 by 2? It doesn't matter. They solved it for us and said the area of the base is 8 times the height. So we would just do area of the base times the height equals volume. In this case, we know the area of the base is 8, the height is 10. 8 times 10 is 80. My units were centimeters, so I have cubic centimeters for volume, okay? So those are the two formulas. Just reviewing really quick with you. We'll do a couple sample problems, and then there's one more that you'll have on the quiz that I'll show you where you could have the missing height. So let's do one more of length times width times height. So again, this is the formula that we're going to practice. Sometimes it'll be drawn for you like I did. Sometimes the information's just given to you in sentences. And it might say something like, oh, the length of this figure is 4, the width of the figure is 3, and the height of the figure is 2. Solve for volume. So you have to be able to solve it if it's drawn for you, but also if it's just written out. Okay, so we'll just practice that. I know my formula is length times width times height. So I would solve 4 times 3 times 2 would be the volume, okay? We know that 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. In this case, I didn't provide units for you, so we'll just use the word units, and we know that they would be cubic units. So the volume would equal 24 units. So you're just multiplying those three numbers. And I know that your teacher and myself, we went over this. I'm just reviewing with you. The other case, remember, is area of the base times the height. That could come your way. And again, it could be drawn out for you, or it could just be given to you in sentence where it just says that the area of the base is maybe 30. And then it might just tell you that the height is 5, and it'll say solve for volume. We know the other formula was area of the base times the height. I know the area of the base is 30. The height is 5. 30 times 5 would be 150. My units were inches, so I would have cubic inches for volume in that case. So again, I know this is just a quick review because we've been doing this, but I know it's been a few weeks. You might be out of practice. So just recalling two formulas. Sometimes you have 3 dimensions. Other times they've solved for that area of the base times the height. Okay, the last one that I want to just do a real quick one for you is when the height is missing. Sometimes they'll provide the area of the base. So we're going to say that the area of the base is 10. And the height is missing, and they give you the volume. We'll say that the volume of it was 40. What is the height? So the question that you will have on the quiz, what was the missing height? Well, let's think about the formula. We know that volume was area of the base times the height, and we'll fill in what we're given. We know we were given volume as 40. The area of the base we were given as 10. And the height's what's missing. This is what we're solving for. So when you place it in the formula form, you can kind of see, all right, what am I looking for? 10 times what would equal 40? And I'm sure you all know that 10 times 4 is what would equal 40. So in this case, we know the height would be 4. You want to plug that back in to make sure that you have it correctly. So if I plugged that back in right here, as my height, I know 10 times 4 equals 40. So those would be the 3 things that you will be doing. I know that we did this already. I just wanted to be sure that you had a little bit of practice. So we're going to do an exit slip real quick. For the week, go through the whole review slide that I made for you today. It'll go over everything that I just showed you, all 3 skills. There's a little bit of challenge at the end. If this is, you feel like you've mastered this and you need a little bit more, there's a challenge at the end of the slide. We'll have a review slide on Tuesday for you to practice, a review slide on Wednesday for you to practice, and then on Thursday you will be taking a quiz. There'll be some geometry in there as well that I did not cover in this lesson, but I covered all of it inside of the slide. The one thing to study on there is the hierarchy of quadrilaterals, different questions about squares and rectangles and trapezoids and such. Okay, so let's finish off with an exit slip to see how you're doing today. I'm going to ask you to hit pause and solve volume for this rectangular prism that I've provided for you. So go ahead and solve that, and then we'll come back and check and see how you did. Okay, let's see how you did. In this case, we saw that the dimensions were a 10 by 2 by 4. We know 10 times 2 is 20, times 4 is 80, and we know that our units are cubed. So hopefully you did okay there. Again, we'll be practicing all week. It's real important that you go through those slides and do the problems and do the practice, and reach out to your teacher or me if you need any help. All right, best of luck to you, and thanks for joining.